Good morning. Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome.
We have another new studio background for you this morning. This one looks like it's in a major metropolitan area. These are, again, AI-generated images. And if you guys are getting tired of those, let us know. And since we have an audience here, let us know what type of backdrops you might be interested in. And if we get enough consensus, we'll switch up the AI backdrops. I was telling one of the other managers here this morning, we're going to be doing a podcast tomorrow, by the way, another one for our different division here, Gruber Power Services.
Right.
And Claude asked me about the backdrop. He says, I took some great pictures up in Alaska. And I said, I used to bring my great pictures in too until I realized that AI does a better job. I'll certainly look at yours, but with AI, you can give it a prompt, a parameter, and it will create whatever you want. You can't do that with a photographer.
Right.
You got to go out do a photo shoot, and you're certainly not going to do that easily on the top of Mount Everest with snow-capped mountains all around. Whereas AI will pull that off in a heartbeat without any expense.
Absolutely.
It looks like a YouTube comment. Lightning Rod is back. Welcome. Hello from Thunder Bay. Still not on fire yet. Okay, good.
That's good. Davil on YouTube also says, keep doing what you do. I love these.
Well, thank you.
Now, we want to give an update about Farzad.
Yes, we were going to have our special guest, Farzad Mesbahi, and it turns out that he had a conflicting appointment, another podcast, I believe, or something.
Yes,
and
I think so.
Anyway, so he will be on next Thursday. We apologize for the short notice. I know that we advertised it a bit, both in the podcasts and in the in some of the social media sites, but it's the patience is worth it. I think you guys will enjoy Farzad's guest appearance, and instead of this Thursday, it will be next Thursday.
Farzad did send us apologies to you as the audience as well. We do also apologize. Scheduling conflicts happen. Life happens, stuff happens.
And it looks like from Instagram, we have a Tesla repair organization, Julio CP86, and what he's asking for is a Tesla wiring diagram for the backdrop. So if we have schematics, I suppose we could put some of those up there too, but we'll see how many people will be interested in those.
I think that would be cool, and I'll bet AI could do something, even if it's not totally accurate into place, put some sort of a wiring diagram. I think that'd look really cool.
I tried that, now that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
And I asked it to render the inside of a 1930s tabletop radio. And what I was expecting was vacuum tubes and, a speaker and, all of the things you would expect to see.
Right.
It got lost with that. I mean, it put stuff in there that I didn't recognize. Now, maybe it was futuristic, and I should have taken notes because there was something valuable there.
Right.
Pete,
Yeah,
can you pull your mic a little closer, please?
sure. All right. How's that? Much better?
Much better.
Okay. So anyway, we can certainly play with things like that. What would be really cool, you social media guys there, if we were able to do that online by just typing into Discord or Midjourney while we're live
I'm trying
and
it
have
right
it change.
now.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'll see if I can get something.
Well,
That'd be
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. And that way we can have the audience participate. What kind of image would you like to see, we'll basically say.
Now, this individual is from Instagram, so they're not going to see it. They'll have to go to our YouTube channel in order
point.
to see the background.
Well,
Okay.
they just got a preview of your Pete with hair. I
Yes.
accidentally pulled up the laptop.
Well, why don't we
I'm
throw
still
that up
working
there
on it.
then?
Yeah, let me pull those up here. Give me a sec.
We had
Okay.
enough public interest to see what Pete would look like with hair, and they assumed that I never had any, right from
Okay,
birth.
here's one.
But this is my, okay.
Yes, yes.
This is the AI image rendering, by the way. And what Jesse did here was he took me with sunglasses at a podcast and then asked AI to insert some hair. That's a reasonable facsimile, I suppose. What do you guys think?
I
We
think,
actually have some other ones too. I can pull up. Just one sec.
yeah, and they look good. The guy on there looks similar to you, but not quite you. But and
While we're waiting, got a couple more questions here. Instagram, Tesla Dave 86 says, great value, great investment, great fun for us. Well, thank you for joining us.
thank you very much. Smuggler is back. He sent a gift to us today, a heart. Thank you, Smuggler, for the gift and for joining us.
And my God, it only took 5 minutes. We have our first sunglass question from Instagram. It's Geo. Why sunglasses indoors, though? It's part of our image. It's kind of like if you've ever seen a Blues Brother movie, you know, if without glasses, I don't think it would be as impactful. Or Neo on The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of the mystique, you know? And of course, people speculate we're really robots and we've got funky eyes, and you guys would notice that. Or we're hungover, and neither of us really drink hard.
Yeah.
So a number of different reasons, but we're enjoying all of the intrigue. And as someone usually points out, you've been saying you're going to make a video for over a year now, revealing the reasons for the sunglasses. And we're still working on it. We're still going to do that at some point. But until the interest dies down, we thought we'd keep the mystique alive.
Oh, I think so as well. I know some ideas of what we can do for the video, but we'll talk about those later.
Now,
You know, Pete, I think I know why everybody's so intrigued by these sunglasses.
why is that?
Because it makes us look shady.
Oh, excellent pun.
You are a dad to be, aren't you?
Okay, so I'm going to pull this up. I got quite a few examples here.
Okay. And it looks like our, oh my God, look at that.
There we go. There we go. That one closest to you, Pete, the bottom left.
The bottom left is the one that you like?
I like that one. I think
Okay.
that's the original one they showed.
Yeah. I'm probably going to go with the upper left second one in. You know, it almost, it's not so much hair that it looks artificial. There's a little bit of receding hairline there, but it looks believable. That one to the right. Yeah. All right. You know what? We're getting a lot of responses here from our audience regarding AI rendering of images behind us, and some great ones here. YouTube. Esnider V7 says he wants to see Elon dancing with the maracas. We're going to have to save these because I'm going to render these in
Oh,
Midjourney
yes,
after we're done.
All
absolutely.
these and make some slideshows.
Yeah.
And Lightning Rod has come back again. He wants to see the view from the smoking lounge at the Edge of Olympus Mons at the Tesla World Mars Towers.
In my space
In his
condo.
space condo.
Excellent idea. And you know, AI does a wonderful job with this stuff. It can conceptualize things that you know, at least are beyond my range. I'm always intrigued and inspired by what it comes up
Oh,
with.
by all means. It's like it has this wonderful imagination, and unlike people that you're limited by language, it actually communicates through the images.
So also YouTube, Esnider V7 says, have you considered selling Gruber sunglasses? Well, actually, that's what these cases are about here. And I'm going to let you guys give the sales pitch here at this point.
Sure. You know, we've got, I'll let Jesse chime in as well, but we've got full grade leather sunglass cases. We're gonna have sunglasses for them. I'll have to check with Jesse as far as
Yeah,
how
we're still
soon.
working on that, but yeah.
The first 100 buyers of sunglass cases are going to get a signature series font, and this is the actual signature series font that's on the Roadsters, engraved in with a serial number. There's a Gruber Motor Company on the back, and of course, Peace signature back here as well.
Mm-hmm. And you know, it's difficult for us because we don't know what the demand will be. It's different for Elon. He can take a crappy bottle of tequila and sell it for $800, and they're sold out the first day. And then the empty bottles sell on eBay for $700, right? Yeah. We're not quite like that. We are going to be facing a minimum order quantity for sunglasses, so we're really trying to test the water here to see what kind of demand we're going to see. So we love hearing from you guys. You know, for those of you that are interested, it gives us more confidence to make that investment for the glasses.
By all means. On Instagram, Dustin Goffrin has a good question for us today. He says, "Hi, Pete. Do you know the impacts of DC charging on LFP batteries?"
You know, I don't, because I'm not sure they've been out long enough to really get any kind of meaningful data like that. You know, one would hope that back at the engineering labs, when they design these types of products, they're taking them through extensive testing. For those of you that go to IKEA, this is one of my favorites. They often will have a chair in the corner there in the furniture area, and there's a mechanical device that is pressing down into the seat on that chair 24/7 for years at a time to prove that this thing can actually, last.
Yeah.
One would hope that this type of destructive testing is taking place. But at least me personally, I'm not aware of any kind of meaningful discharge or life data yet on the LFP batteries.
That's something that we can definitely research and find out more about. I know that the LFP batteries are unlike the chemistry of the lithium-ion batteries, which do tend to degrade over time if they more quickly when they get charged to 100%. LFP doesn't have some of those restrictions and limitations. Beyond that, I'm not sure yet.
And then there are surprises. Let's not forget that the original Tesla Roadster battery, which is an 18650 lithium-ion cell, 2.2 amp hour. The majority of those are still going strong 15 years later, despite the fact that they were expecting a 10-year service life.
Yes.
Then Tesla went to LG, got some 3.2 amp hour batteries years later, and those have only lasted 7 to 8 years. So there are a lot of surprises in this world of new technology, battery technology.
You know, it does look like, I just looked up a little bit, the IEEE, that's the standards body for electrical engineering. They do have some information on the effects of pulse and DC charging on lithium iron phosphate batteries. So there is some stuff out there. We'll get back to you guys on that.
Good question. Thank you. So anyway, Dave says, I like more hair in the middle. All right.
Yes.
TikTok, Benner PI. He's asking, what are the environmental impacts, carbon footprint of rare earth mineral mining for batteries?
You know, that's a great question. We've addressed some of that in the past, not in a huge amount of detail, but, you know, you've got the rare earth minerals, which include cobalt, to a lesser extent nickel, and also to a little bit of a lesser extent lithium. They're not terribly common elements. There are definitely environmental impacts. For example, the amount of water that's currently being used to extract lithium from the mining operations is considered harmful to the environment around it. I think it's something around, and don't quote me here, about 500,000 gallons of water required to get just a few kilos of lithium out of it. So there has been a lot of consternation about that, as well as the lithium mining operations tend to be strip mining type of operations. So it's not like you're putting a cave into the ground and going underground. You're destroying all the plants and environment around an area to get to the lithium. With that said, a lot of these mining operations are similar to the type of mining operations that you have for metals like copper that are fairly common. And there is definitely movement afoot to try to make the environmental impact a little bit better than what it is right now. Probably the biggest hindrance to that will be that a lot of the mining is done by countries that don't have a lot of regard for the environment, such as China. They have a majority of the mining interest in the world, and the mining is done in a lot of countries that do not have developed laws for environmental protection, such as the Congo in the middle of Africa.
Good point. Point.
We'll also have alternatives too. So lithium won't be the primary battery mineral for much longer, I don't think.
I agree with you on that, Jesse. You know, it's only half joking when we say fusion's the future. You know, there are a lot of power alternatives that are out there, whether it's solar that are going to be on the cars that reduce the need for batteries, different chemistries we've talked about, whether it's sodium ion batteries, potassium ion batteries, mixtures of salts. There's one researcher over in Europe that's put a mixture of 5 different salts together, which includes sodium, potassium, and lithium salts, that greatly reduces the amount of lithium, increases the life of the battery, and increases the life in terms of number of charges that it'll take, and increases the energy density. And this says nothing about the recycling of these batteries. You know, unlike some of the like your alkaline battery technology, lithium is much more like the traditional lead acid battery, which can be over 90% recycled. And we know that lithium recycling can recapture as much as 98% of the original materials, without the environmental impact.
Sure. And then, of course, you have the emissions impact as well. I mean, any of these mining operations use an enormous amount of heavy machinery that
Yes.
typically runs on diesel. And it's not just the mining operations, it's then the transport to the places where these products are then used. And oftentimes that includes ocean going, it includes overland transport. So yeah, there's a huge environmental impact with some of this type of mining. Later on, we're going to talk about a company that is electrifying heavy equipment, mining equipment, construction equipment.
Yeah, to me, that's an exciting development as well.
Yeah.
On Facebook, Richard Gearing says, Pete, I'm a subscriber and I love your videos. Curious why you always wear sunglasses indoors.
Sincerely, Rich. Well, Rich, we get asked this question often, and sometimes a number of times during the podcast. But it's sort of an image that we project, and it seems like I have a different reason every time, doesn't it?
Oh, sure.
If you've watched the movie The Matrix, if you've watched The Blues Brothers, there's a certain aura that comes along with that. And then, of course, as we said earlier, it's possible that we are AI robots and that our eyes would give away that fact. So this is a great way for us to hide our eyes. For those of you that are really interested in why we're doing this, we also suggest putting sunglasses on your side, and maybe it will the light will come.
Changes the experience.
It does, yes.
That's right. You've got to experience it. Don't knock it before you try it, as they say.
But we will have a video soon. And we don't have the timeline nailed down yet, but we will have a complete reveal. And most of you will say, oh, that's why the heck he was doing that,
Right.
It'll be a good one, though, so hang in there with us.
On TikTok, Philip Todd Stewart talking about the lithium mining and environmental impacts. He said, I saw a guy that said they were getting lithium from oil wells.
Oh, that's a new one, yeah.
That's a new one. We've heard about and talked about a little bit how geothermal, people are drilling wells for geothermal activity to capture the geothermal properties from the soil and stuff that's coming out of the ground. And then once that soil has cooled, rather than pumping it back into the wells, they found that the soil was incredibly lithium rich. And so they're extracting the lithium from that before they put it back into the wells.
Salton Sea in California, actually.
Salton Sea in California, that's right.
So they're now, they have a process now that takes the slurry or sludge, and rather than pump it back in the ground, like you say, they're actually extracting lithium. And Stellantis is investing heavily in this operation in California. All right, so YouTube Lightning Rod, he says, I have a question about the boring company. Is it conceivable that the machines used for boring could be engineered to mine underground without disturbing the surface? That's an intriguing concept if you think about it. If you know that there's an extremely mineral-rich ore underground, then a process like this would be probably much better for the environment because you're containing it and you've got extremely high-grade ore coming out.
Correct. In theory, it sounds like it would be completely reasonable.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm going to get into a news item here. Have you guys noticed that Tesla stock is back up over 200 now?
Yeah.
Those of us that have been waiting for it to recover, that is great news. Now, of course, the article then says, should you sell? Should you hang on to it? What goes up must come down. They do qualify it, and they say, for starters, Tesla, TSLA stock, is a volatile stock. And I should have been listening to this next sentence. Buying and selling too much is a bad idea. And I keep relearning that with Tesla stock. The ultimate investment strategy is buy, sell, buy low and sell high.
Right.
And it seems like a simple concept, but you tend to get fooled often,
Yes.
So what I've done most recently is I just leave it alone. It's a long-term stock. If you're trying to day trade Tesla, it's going to be frustrating. So if you really believe in the electrification and the EV adoption continuing, and the one company on the planet that really seems to be in the lead, and of course we're not financial advisors, guys.
That's right.
Right? it seems like a long-term strategy is a far better approach, and just let it mature.
You know, I'll start with my own disclaimer. Yes, I own some shares of Tesla and of Lucid, which we're going to talk about later. And just so you know, my comments are my opinions only. Don't depend on them for advice. I'm not a qualified advisor, and I'm not sure if I would be giving good advice. At the same time, I think it's going to take bigger news than just Tesla's hit 200. Do you want to take profits? In order for Tesla to really move up or down too much right now. There's a lot of stuff in the hopper. For example, we talked on Tuesday about Tesla advertising, quote unquote, for the first time. Well, they're going into paid advertising for the first time. If that paid advertising works, your stock is going to go up, and could go up a lot. The Cybertruck is supposed to roll out by October 1st. The first ones are supposed to come off the line. If Tesla's successful in getting those first few off the line so that they're ramping up production in the fourth quarter and into first quarter 2024, that's going to be a huge boost to Tesla stock. It's going to make it definitely go up because they're sitting on well over 1 million orders of Cybertrucks. If it doesn't happen, if there's another delay, then your Tesla stock is likely going to go down as a result of that upcoming news. The discounts, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but Tesla seems to be changing their prices on an almost daily basis for the different models of cars.
And what did you tell me earlier you thought was behind that strategy?
Oh, I think it's totally just a free advertising strategy at this point.
Yes.
It's Tesla as a company, and Elon Musk as an individual is a master of getting attention. He's masterful at his ability to do that. And I'm at the point where I now believe that the moves and the changes for these discounts, I think, are out there as much to garner attention for Tesla as anything, because I think Tesla gets more exposure and better press from the fact that all of the magazines in the world, it seems like, are reporting on their price changes than they are the changes themselves. We'll get more into that when we talk in more detail about the price changes that came up within the last couple of days. If these discounts help to drive sales and help to drive market share, which we won't know until the end of June, then we're going to say, oh, great move, Tesla, and their stock will go up. If market share is unchanged and their gross margins go way down because of discounts they've been giving, then investors are going to say, Tesla, you've been an idiot, and they're going to punish Tesla. Whether or not they have been is another story. I think the Ford agreement that came out this last week, where Ford is going to get access to as many as half of Tesla's superchargers, is great news longer term for Tesla and will help drive that stock once investors realize that this gives Tesla a better chance to capitalize and recoup a return on the investment they're making in their supercharging infrastructure. So those are a few of the things that I think are going to impact Tesla stock, and none of those things are happening right now.
The thing I look at too, with Tesla stock, you really don't need a crystal ball. If you take a look at a couple of things, one is unprecedented demand.
Yeah.
I mean, every manufacturer in the world would like to have that level of demand, more demand than you have supply. And the second part of it is look at the amount of production capacity that is under construction,
Right.
which will eventually come up running and become more and more efficient. We've seen GigaBerlin continuously improve their production output and their rates. Now we've got a factory that's going to go down in Mexico, which will be larger than even Texas. And we're talking about, I don't know whether Texas is the largest manufacturing facility in the world. It seems like I heard that somewhere, but they're huge. And so you have these gigantic, this machinery, which is able to crank out, well beyond what we've seen, and with a demand that seems to be, not exhausting.
Yeah, it's so far there has been no limit to the demand that we've seen. I totally believe that Tesla is intent on pursuing up to the 5 million cars a year just out of Mexico that they've been talking about.
And then, of course, you have the other issue, which is the replacement of existing transportation. How far are we into that? Well, it's below 10%.
Right.
So you have this gigantic roadmap ahead of you that pretty much guarantees that all this production capacity will at some point be fully utilized. And again, demand will outstrip supply. So the whether Tesla is a good play or not, Tesla stock, it kind of answers itself.
I think it kind of does long term. Unlike the automotive market overall, which even that is not really truly saturated on a global scale, you've got 3 billion people between India and China that are really just waking up to automobile ownership over the last generation. But in many places of the world, in Europe and the United States, it's largely saturated, but the EV market is not. The electric vehicle market, which is revolutionary, is completely a new market within that automotive market. And so it's exciting times.
It is. Bunch of questions
Hold
coming
on
in.
real quick, Pete.
Yeah.
Because Mark, actually, because you had mentioned Tesla and Ford,
Yes.
I thought this was a funny meme that I think Aaron might have put out on our Twitter account.
It is a great one.
That's awesome.
And then we have our first result from the AI schematic images.
Okay.
So I'm still going to
like
mess with that
that.
because I think they were looking for more of like a blueprint kind of a thing, but still turned out pretty cool.
Yeah, what we need to see is op amps and diodes and transformers and wiring diagrams with connectors.
Yeah, so we'll
Which-
take down all those audience requests and we'll work on those.
That's a great picture though to start with.
It is. And we'll play with that more since our audience seems to like our diving into AI and bringing up some images based on requests. So YouTube Lightning Rod asks, also, why do you think that no one is pursuing what I think is low-hanging fruit of fully electrifying rail in North America? By the way, Europe did this many, many decades ago, of course. Currently, they are diesel electric, adding a couple and also adding a couple of batteries. Cars would create an energy shipping company distributing rail car-sized power packs and eliminating all of the diesel soot currently deposited into the rail switching yards.
That's a great question, and I see that Niles has partly answered Lightning Rod as well when he. And good morning, Niles, from
Yeah,
the
good morning.
Bion Danish Genome Institute. He says there are experiments with electric rail cars that carry their own batteries. Not sure how far they're going, but the concept makes sense. I'd agree. I think this could be a low hanging fruit. My one counterpoint argument to this, though, if I'm going to be the devil's advocate, one train, which can be up to 2.5 miles long, running on generator and producing a diesel, which is not good, is, I don't know how equivalent to how many diesel trucks, but I know it is several orders of magnitude more efficient than the diesel semi trucks
That are on the roads currently, yeah.
that are on the roads currently. So I think the even lower hanging fruit, which we are seeing out there, not only Tesla, I believe Nikola is trying to go commercial electric as well, is the commercial electric semis. But I think it's a great idea. I don't want to take away from Lightning Rod's idea. I think it is a great idea to try to move that
Wouldn't it be
direction.
better just to do maglev trains?
Very possibly,
We're
yes.
talking about cross country.
Yeah.
Do you guys know if our light rail here is partially
It's all
generator?
electric.
It is all electric. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, oftentimes when I drive downtown, my Tesla Roadster, I look over and I go, that's your big brother.
Yes.
All right, Facebook, Gary Coffey says, China owns Cobot, K-O-B-O-T. I don't know what that is in reference to. It's probably something we spoke about earlier.
I think so. Niles on YouTube has another question for us, Pete, and I think
Okay.
this is a really good question. He says, would you like to air your goals with these podcasts and generally? I regularly ask myself what mine are, and they sometimes improve by discussing with others.
That's a good point. You're a philosopher too, Niles. I appreciate that. For us, these podcasts are an experiment. They're evolving. And whenever you're having this much fun with something, you stay with it and you look for the ROI.
Yes.
We're also business people, by the way. Well, there's an enormous amount of expense that goes along with all of this, salaries and equipment and, insurance and buildings and all of that. Anybody in social media these days has two purposes. One is the core mission or the cause, what we're passionate about, in other words. And if you can combine that with some revenue generating opportunity, then you've been successful. If you're doing one or the other, you may not be, because if it's just passion, you may run out of money.
Right.
If it's just money, you're going to lose your passion and you're not going to have an audience. You have to have something of interest to the audience that you're attracting. So for us, this is an evolving thing. And what I had mentioned earlier was tomorrow morning is going to be the first podcast that we're going to do for another division here at the Gruber Companies, which is Gruber Power Services. It's a 40-year division that services critical power equipment and data centers all across the United States. And I'm going to digress a bit here, but it looks like you guys would be interested in this. Having done having evolved businesses for 40 years, and having been a manager in those businesses, including a sales manager, my own evolution has been that times are changing rapidly. It used to be that if you made a great product, you brought that product to manufacturers' representatives, which locked down a particular territory, like the state of Arizona, let's say. Mm-hmm. And anything that got sold in Arizona, they got a commission of, because manufacturers did not have sales organizations. Then a change began to occur. It wasn't the information age yet, but some companies began to challenge that notion that you couldn't be a great sales organization and a producer of something. And they began to do what we did, which is develop call centers, sales teams. And the traditional way of taking a great product or service to market was to have people that got on the phones and built relationships,
right,
and educated the customers. Here's why we're better. Here's what we do, and of course qualify. What are your needs? And then attempting to meet those needs. Well, that has also changed. It used to be that you did trade shows to build relationships. You did direct mail to stay visible. Mm-hmm. Then the information age came into the picture, and suddenly the distance between a manufacturer, producer, and an end user shrunk exponentially to where the two were suddenly very close to each other. All you have to do now to find a product is Google it. And you can bypass that manufacturer's rep, that distributor, that broker, that master distributor, and if you go directly to the manufacturer, they oftentimes will sell to you directly. They don't need those other parasitic layers in the equation anymore. So anyway, getting back to the original story, tomorrow we're going to do our first Gruber Power Services podcast, and we currently have literally account managers, salespeople, and support staff. We even have prospectors that do the dialing for dollars thing. We're going to utilize social media to build visibility for what we do, and through these podcasts. So stay tuned, and we'll let you know how this is working out for us. Now, just to give you a bit of an example here, Gruber Motor Company, the one that repairs Teslas and Tesla Roadsters, is the newest division in our company. We have never had a sales rep in that organization. We have 50 salespeople in the other organizations. Right. Gruber Motor Company generates more leads than any of these other divisions staffed with competent, highly qualified salespeople. So I think it's a combination of the two that really are going to make companies relevant and successful in the future.
Oh, I think so as well. I still remember having conversations with Jesse this last year where we had Zane here, and we were looking for somebody to help spell Zane because he wasn't going to always be able to be here. And I'm like, look, I'm an EV enthusiast, and I like to talk.
Right. We're passionate about something,
We're
right?
passionate about this. But just from that business side, the world has changed. And right now, the traditional industries like the Gruber communication products, low voltage cabling, which is largely commoditized, or even Gruber Power Services, which is critical power infrastructure. I mean, that's how Gruber Motors got its start, was because we came to learn that electric cars are UPSs that just happen to have wheels.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's kind of the only difference. But the method by which we reach out to people, by which we become known, by which we announce, hey, here's what we have to offer, that has morphed over time as well. I've learned in marketing, you've got to give some value to get value back. And one way that we can help give value to our customers and our prospective customers is to do things like this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I'm actually quite excited about the Gruber Power Services podcast. It is a grand experiment that I don't believe any of our competition in the critical power services industry is trying yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a more traditional industry with more traditional sales methods and sales channels and so on and so forth. But these traditional industries are all struggling to get the word out in an environment where I, as Joe individual, can, on one hand, go out to somebody. I don't know who they are. I don't see them. I've never talked to them, but they're in China. I'm here in the States, and they can give me 100 cables at 79 cents a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I come here into the States, and I can go to Walmart and buy that exact same cable for $2.99.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to get the 79-cent cable, especially if it has free shipping.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of cases, they're even doing that. So that's a new way that little person who never had the platform to try to be able to reach out to a worldwide audience now does.
You know, that was the first thing we noticed in 1995. We started an internet service company, by the way, back in 95 when the internet was just getting going. And what fascinated us at the time was, with websites, you could look and feel as relevant as AT&T at the time.
Yes.
And that was unprecedented. That had never happened before, you know. To give you another example about the critical power market that we're in, our first podcast tomorrow, our competition, and some of them are massive companies. I mean, we're talking about multi-billion-dollar multinationals, right? Are still using lead-acid batteries in the critical power equipment.
Sure.
Just to show you how antiquated that is. And oftentimes, they're still going through manufacturers' reps. They're going through distribution. They haven't evolved and developed their own sales channels. So anyway, we're going to have fun with this. We're going to, again, become leaders, and that's one of the things that we enjoy doing is we're not afraid of technology. We're not afraid of being at the forefront. We're not afraid of leaving the corral and going outside into the untested portions of the grass.
Absolutely.
And we're going to show people how to do it again in this other market.
You know, I'm certain that there'll be some stumbles along the way, but that's part of the learning journey, and honestly, that's kind of part of the fun.
So we got a TikTok question from Leaf Village Outcast. Day 361 of asking why sunglasses. Guys, just tell me. I won't tell anyone.
Hey, thank you, Leaf Village. I noticed it's now 361.
Yeah.
2 days ago, it was day 359. I still happen to think one of the favorite ones, Leaf Village, that you've talked about is the sunglasses help you to make sure that you don't know whether or not we're awake or asleep.
That and that actually happened. Should we talk about that? Yeah. The Tesla Investor Day, I don't know, a couple of months ago or so, we thought that it was going to be an opportunity for us to be live, to broadcast it, to provide commentary. It turns out that we couldn't really do the commentary because it would have competed with the narrative that was being, displayed. So literally, we were sitting back here doing absolutely nothing for 2.5 hours, and I fell asleep, and no one knew it. Except for these guys, when they nudged me.
That's
It looks like Thomas Curtis is coming in from YouTube. He says, good morning from Aotearoa. I don't know where that is.
I don't either. Thomas has been here before as well, though.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that might be over in New Zealand, but I'm not sure of that.
He is our New Zealand guest. He's the one who usually
it's-
says Kia ora.
Okay. It is New Zealand then. Thomas, welcome back. Yes, you're a long ways away. By the way, a Tesla Roadster just sold in Australia, right-hand drive, went at auction, sold for $60,000. One of our customers bought it, and he's pretty excited about it. It was a Fusion Red, bright red Roadster. You don't see too many in Australia.
No. That's pretty cool. That's a great price, too.
Mm-hmm.
Niles from the Biodanish Genome Institute tells us, in regards to Tesla shares, aren't they so volatile that in 1 or 2 years, far out of money call and put options make sense? For example, real cheap puts would protect against large drops at a very small premium.
You know, Niles, I've played that game. Back in my younger days, I actually had a straddle position on digital equipment stock because I noticed that it was very cyclical. It would go up and down and up and down. So with a straddle, you take two positions, you go long and short at the same time, and then you try to ratchet in and out and make some money. Well, you know, theoretically, it made perfect sense. In practice, greed took over, fear took over, and I wasn't making the decisions in a timely manner. You know?
So in other words, you ended up selling low and buying high.
Pretty much, yes. Kicking myself all the way. At one point, I owned 50,000 pounds of copper. I took some copper futures. I don't know why. And then when the Nelson Bunker Hunt thing in Texas, they were cornering the silver market.
Yeah.
I got in on the tail end of that thing. And then it just crashed. So the bottom line is, yeah, you can do all of that, but boy, it takes some talent or luck. And I'm not sure which is more prevalent in that when you're successful in that world. But thank you for the tip, Niles. Yeah.
Good question. George from the Watch for Trade Builds channel has joined us. Good morning, guys. Sorry I'm late, he says. Can you please forgive me? Of course, George. We love having you on and certainly look forward to your interactions today.
And we enjoyed your email, by the way, George. You gave us a little bit more background, and thank you for joining us.
That's absolutely my favorite color of Tesla, that midnight blue.
Yep. We just bought one of those.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And we just got it on the road, my understanding, too.
I hear that, yes. Yeah, that's what we do, folks. We repair Teslas and put them back on the road.
That's right. Davil on YouTube, very nice. It says, it would be nice if they could charge from the rails as they travel.
Yeah.
Now, that's an idea for that train, for those trains.
The New York subways have that. They've got that third rail, which is high voltage, and that's why you don't want to jump down in there if you dropped your cell phone or something.
Right. Niles also comments to us, there's all kinds of things that could happen, he's talking about some of those things. He said Musk could get sick.
Mm-hmm.
The ID2 could become wildly successful or something else. He said, I would not buy Tesla without some cheap puts on it.
Yeah, good point. Good protection.
I think you're right. Let's see. Nolvar 53. That's Revlon spelled backwards.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember right, with Ford having access to the Tesla charging network, I think Farley said in 2025, all for EVs will incorporate the Tesla /NACS. I think he's talking about
the
that
North
charging.
American charging standard. Yeah. None of us want to see any of these incumbent manufacturers go out of business, especially the ones that have been around for, a century. But I have concerns about some of these incumbents, and it looks like Ford is doing the right things now to attempt to prevent that from occurring.
Ford, I think, is trying and really making a concerted effort. Some of the other vehicle manufacturers are late to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, I think, are still in kind of a wait-and-see mode. And those are the ones that I would be most concerned about their survival in 15 or 20 years.
Mm-hmm. YouTube.
So, I'm sorry, Pete, real quick. So, Nolver had a second half to the question. He apologized. His connection timed out, and he wasn't able to complete the question. So we have it right here. I'll highlight it for you.
Okay.
Can the charge port on older EVs be upgraded to avoid having to carry multiple charging adapters?
I think anything can be done. I'm just not sure how extensive it will be. It probably gets into firmware. There will be an expensive heavy current cable that will need to be either modified or replaced. So it depends on what is most cost effective, I guess. But yes, anything can be done.
Yeah, I think it could be upgraded. I've seen where we've tried to replace charge ports that have gone bad on Model S's, and even those charge ports have a small circuit board attached to them, and as a result, you have to make sure that your firmware is up to date.
Right.
And that's something early on we were struggling with. I think we've got that dialed in a little better now, but it's not as easy as unscrew one thing and screw another one back in like they used to have on some of these ICE vehicles.
And they don't make it that easy. I saw a video yesterday about Tesla's new lithium-ion low-voltage battery, the 12-volt battery. It's infinitely smaller than that big, AGM battery, lead-acid battery. It's about the size of what you'd have in your ICE vehicle. So this lithium-ion 12-volt battery pack looks like it would be easily adaptable for the older version Teslas, but it turns out that there's circuit boards inside. There's bidirectional communication with the firmware.
Okay.
And no, it is not easy to do. This particular article even talked about the challenges of trying to get an aftermarket lithium-ion 12-volt battery, like the OMO battery, installed in a Tesla Model S. And I was unaware that there were some design challenges fitting it or getting it to operate properly in a Model S or Model 3. So it's if the manufacturers made it backward compatible, which we love seeing in the computer world, do we not? These sorts of things would be easy to do, but there are other concerns and overriding incentives when manufacturers do this. They don't want to spend more than they have to, and backward compatibility may not be the highest item on the list.
Yeah, as technology grows, and we've seen this in the tech industry for years, that backward compatibility can actually hold you back from forward innovation. To use a Tesla example, we know that Tesla is committed toward moving to a 48-volt low voltage system as opposed to the 12-volt. Well, that's not going to be backward compatible.
Right. So it looks like Niles has another question for us. He says, if Apteras get into production, would you fix them? Oh, absolutely. Their electronics, are they open source? We don't know that yet. They encourage owners to work on them and promise to provide complete documentation. Or if they do, he might order one. My take on this, Niles, is that any of these small EV manufacturers are going to have a very difficult time getting product to market. And building a service delivery network is not the highest priority because that comes after the fact. But you have to have both in order to sell cars.
Right.
So my take on this is going to be, unlike Tesla, who had no options at the time and had to build service delivery in order to sell cars, these types of manufacturers are going to go out and look for companies like us that have some expertise. And they're going to outsource. In this case, as you mentioned, if they let the owners work on them, now it'd be limited, of course. That would also be nice. But I think that companies like us will be repairing other types of vehicles and will get enormous support from the manufacturers, which at this point, it's in their best interest to support what they used to consider competition.
Well, and I know that there are some manufacturers that have reached out to us about that possibility in the future as well.
The end of this year, actually, we've got one. We won't mention names, but it's the same type of scenario. Unwilling or unable to build a service delivery network quickly enough, but yet needing to get their car serviced.
Yes. Just Al from YouTube says, "Hey guys, I'm new here. Welcome and good morning. Glad to have you here. Did I understand you correctly? You were in the electric motor repair biz and now are moving mostly toward batteries?"
We have never really been in the electric motor repair business, and me personally, I mean, they're fairly low-tech items. They're easy to repair. You know, a DC brush motor, for example, change the brushes, clean up the commutator, replace the bearings. We didn't get into motor rewinding. That gets a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are fairly low-tech devices. And we do work on batteries, yes. Tesla Roadster batteries, especially as they get bricked, as they get resistive cells. You can take and avoid a $30,000 pack replacement by having services like ours done on your Tesla Roadster and your Tesla Model S, or any of these EVs that have multi-cell lithium ion or lithium iron phosphate batteries.
And our sister company, Gruber Power Services, which is part of what inspired us to move into the electric vehicle space, works on uninterruptible power supply systems. And those are mostly lead-acid battery systems put together in a string with high voltage, AC to DC, and then DC to AC inverters, very similar to, in fact, essentially the same as what happens in electric vehicles. So I know we were talking a lot about Gruber Power Services earlier. That is where we came from, is in the stationary power application business. And from there went into Gruber Motors way back in 2015. That was 8 years ago now.
Mm-hmm. And it's been a great transition for us. And the skills required to work on EVs is identical to what we do in critical power. Like you said, one powers a bunch of servers, the other one powers a drivetrain with wheels.
Yeah, other than that, they're essentially the same thing. One of the guys who helps us from an engineering point for years had been our module repair person in our power services division.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Mark, what do you think of Lucid's recent public offering?
Well, I'm not surprised by it, honestly. And to catch people up, I think it was just yesterday that the Lucid Group announced that they were going to offer around 174 million shares for sale of its common stock. And then the Saudi Arabian investment fund is going to buy a large portion of those shares so that it keeps its investment at the 60.5% roughly ownership level of Lucid that it has. We were talking earlier this spring, though. Lucid is, for all intents and purposes, a young startup company that has a lot of cash burn. Mm-hmm. And in the second, they announced at the end of the first quarter that they had enough cash to last them through the second quarter of 2024. That kind of spooked investors and took Lucid further down. And you and I speculated back then, we're probably not that far off from some sort of a capital call. They're going to probably try to call in, get some more cash so that they have more ramp for their company. Their manufacturing is not going quite as quickly as they wanted. There's the rumors of Lucid sitting on the lot out in their manufacturing facility because whether it's logistics issues or whether it's simply people canceling some of their contracts so they have cars that are still yet to be sold, we don't know. That's all expected.
Yeah.
Now, the investors aren't going to like it. I own a little bit of Lucid stock, as I said earlier. Now my ownership interest in Lucid has been diluted. Not that it was noticeable to start with, but
he won't tell you how many shares he has.
No, but the fact is, that's typically what happens when a company sells more shares. The owners of those shares, it's a basic supply and demand. You've upped your supply, so your demand is going to go down. Your prices are going to go down.
It sounds like government spending, does it not?
Well, a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. So I'm not surprised that they went and did this based on the news that's come out earlier this year, that this was a logical happening. And it's hard for us to remember, it seems like. This is a very young startup company. If you look back at Tesla's history, at the same age that Lucid is right now, Tesla was in exactly the same spot. Mm-hmm. They were a young startup company, had never, ever been profitable. They had their first car out, the Roadster, and nobody was sure if they were even going to produce this so-called luxury sedan that we now know as the Model S. That's how young Lucid is. So I still have high hopes for Lucid's future. I think that the investment fund from the Saudis will continue to backstop them as they move forward and they produce what I think is a world-class product.
Yeah, I mean the releases of the Lucid product. There were rave reviews. I remember Tesla owners buying them and saying, "I like the Lucid better than Tesla," and definitely a class act vehicle, and with some good solid management and expertise in the company. And again, as we've always said, we hope that all of these EV manufacturers and the incumbents make it. But with this level of disruption, all bets are off as to who's going to emerge victorious after the fray.
Our hope is that Lucid makes it, that, like you said, all these others make it. The reality is it might be that somebody with superior technology doesn't make it and somebody with inferior technology does.
Yeah. All right, so this other article that we wanted to share with you, there's an Irish company called Cool Planet Group, and they are going to convert 8,500 diesel-powered mining trucks into electric vehicles over the next 3 years. They expect that this is about a 50 million euro project, and they are a world-leading mining company. So it looks like we're going to at least get some fossil fuel burners.
I was surprised when I did a little bit of extra research to find out exactly how many fossil fuel burners this could take off the road when they're fully implemented. We're not talking about a pickup here. We're talking about these massive mining trucks that have the 15-foot high wheels and can hold as much as 100 tons per load of ore. So they're massive vehicles. They put out as much pollution in one mining truck as about 800 cars.
Is that right?
Yeah. So putting 8,500 of these out in the world as electric only is equivalent to getting nearly 6.8 million gas cars off the road.
That's substantial, isn't it?
Yeah. That's just, to me, that's just amazing.
We have a picture, Jesse. I forgot to mention that. If you can, no, I guess I don't. Never mind. It was another image that I was going to pop up. All right, so we've got YouTube lightning rod, land of the long white cloud. That was in reference to something. Part of the problem we have with the questions is they come in after we've covered a topic, and I'm at a loss sometimes to recall what that question might have been in reference to.
I'm not sure. Richard stepped out. We'll need him to.
Yeah, Richard is usually. He collects them, and he often has some insights. But
George has another really good question for us this morning. I'm sorry, not George. In this case, it's Niles from the NSGM. Why is there such a shortage of EV repair people? Is it that colleges are slow to adapt? Is there lack of free online course material? Is there lack of student interest? Or you might say any other.
We've had learning institutions, traditional ones, come to us asking us to provide some assistance with their curriculum. And these are the typical mechanic type, learning institutions, how to become a ace auto mechanic, a master mechanic. It really starts at the teacher level. Remember, this is a brand new field.
Right.
People that worked in the EV space have not yet decided to get into education. And even if they did, they probably wouldn't make anywhere near the money that they're making repairing the cars. So that's the first problem, is it's not mature enough yet where there are educators that are trained and skilled that are available for these courses. The other part of it is Tesla has a START program, which because they recognize this problem and they have a shortage of staff at their facilities as well. And they have actually invested in helping learning institutions develop curriculums and assisting them with things like internships. I know that we were going to put this up on our website, but we haven't done it yet. The Rio Hondo College in Whittier, California, was one of the first that we became aware of that had
Right.
that was part of this START program. And then one of our guys, Richard, did some research and found that there were a dozen others around the country that had begun to develop curriculums. But the simple answer to that, Niles, is it's a pretty new field. We don't have people yet that have the expertise.
I think the amount of growth in the EV field as well is one of the things that actually is causing the shortage. I mean, even just go back to 2021, people were amazed that 2% of all vehicles sold. Now, the market just in the United States for vehicles sold is somewhere around 20 to 25 million a year. So 2% of those vehicles, which would be about 40 or 50,000, were sold in a year. Well, okay, now we already know if it's 40,000 in a year, we come forward 2 years, and we know based on what we talked about, what we've talked about in Tesla's first quarter, they sold 450,000 vehicles themselves that are EVs in the first quarter of 2023. The overall adoption rate has gone up from 2% up to about 8% in the United States. And there are countries like Norway where 8 out of 10 vehicles that are sold are already electric. The rate of adoption is stunning for any industry. And so the demand for repair on those vehicles has just far outstripped supply, simply because there's suddenly so many more of them out there that they never used to have.
And, it was not a gradual migration into a different or expanded or more advanced technology like it was in the ICE world. We went from having internal combustion engines to having federal mandates for emission controls, and suddenly you had to have oxygen sensors in the
Yes.
exhaust systems, and you had to, and then fuel injection came along, and that was different than a carburetor, which was fairly low tech. But the people in the business were able to migrate gradually into these newer technologies. With EVs, there's nothing similar about an ICE drivetrain and an EV drivetrain. It is an overnight, abrupt shift into something different. And it's very difficult for people to that are in the business to make that transition.
Wasn't it Ingemar Anderson who was talking to us and mentioned in his book about the future is electric, the story of his grandfather who was a steam engine mechanic and was around the turn of the century around 1900 to 1910 when automobiles were coming into play and locomotives were moving from steam to diesel, and all of that was happening. And his grandfather said, I don't know what to do. Everything I know from 30 years of working on steam engines is steam.
Yeah.
And the rules are completely changed. The skills that I have with steam engines simply don't apply.
Right.
And the same thing is happening here. You're used to having a car that has a powertrain with some 22 to 2,500 parts that's now been replaced by a powertrain that has maybe 20 to 30 moving parts. And most of those parts are contained within that one watermelon-sized or sometimes smaller electric motor. And it's kind of a closed box system.
And then you have a whole new set of skills that come into play if you're doing any independent type repair work where you have to repair down a component level. Now suddenly you're opening up boxes that have electronic components in them.
Yeah.
As an ICE mechanic, you never needed to deal with any of that,
As an ICE mechanic, you made fun of the kids that did the radio repairs.
Exactly. They were the nerds, yes.
and now they're repairing your cars.
Yeah.
So now the next one's from George, and that's why the next comment we have is from George. Pete, how'd your Bitcoin bank with Elon for $20,000 work out?
All right, let's give some background here. I got an invitation from Elon to become a friend of his on Facebook. No, Twitter. I'm sorry, Twitter. Yes. So I decided, sure, why not? And then I looked at his followers, and he had like 28. And I thought, what happened to the other 72 million followers that Elon had? And I thought, well, it's plausible. Maybe he lost them. Maybe he said something
maybe.
wrong. Yeah, it's possible, right? So I became his friend, and we began to talk a bit. And I asked him how his private jet was doing and all that. And the next thing you know, he wanted to borrow $20,000 from me. And I said to him, well, Elon, I don't mind giving you 20K, but you haven't repaid me yet for that Twitter investment I made with you for 50% of Twitter, which is $22 billion.
Yes.
And he said, well, but I'm kind of tight right now, and I will pay you that next week. Can you just give me $20,000? And I said, well, Elon, if you have $22 billion you're going to be able to give me next week, then why are we talking about a $20,000 problem right now?
Right.
And then he changed the story. He says, well, you know what, let's make it 100,000. Now he wanted to make it sound like it was a bit more money, and it wasn't quite a big a disparity between $22 billion and $20,000.
Sure.
So the latest conversation is he now wants 100,000. Now, I don't know, maybe Elon has hit on hard times. Maybe he needs the money real bad, and I'd certainly love to help him. But that's how it's working out right now, George. We're at $100,000.
Story has changed a little bit since Tuesday's
It
episode.
has. It keeps on evolving, actually, and but it looks like Elon. His pictures on that account, and I don't think he has any more followers either.
Well, I mean, if his picture's on it, and did he pay the $8 a month for the blue check mark?
I didn't even check that. That's true. I should check that.
You should check that too.
Yeah. Now, but anyway, that's how it's going. We'll keep you updated, George. We'll see if Elon's money problems are really that bad at this point. So YouTube. This is George again. He says, do you guys know of an aftermarket camera recording system I could add to my 2014 Model S that would let me use Tesla's factory stock cameras, like the cameras on the front fender and in the window pillars?
I don't right offhand, but that's a great idea.
It is, yeah.
That's one that I'll jot that as a takeaway too.
Mm-hmm.
That's our second takeaway for today.
And then we've got YouTube, Lightning Rod. He says, I feel like a steam engine 2 sitting in my garage full of 20-year-old cars. There is no upgrade path for existing shops.
Unfortunately, Lightning Rod, I think you might be right.
Mm-hmm.
That's. By the way, thank you, Richard. He helped clarify Lightning Rod's earlier comment as well. That was a welcome to Thomas Curtis from a Otteria, which is the
in New
land of the
Zealand.
long white cloud.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, so guys, can we throw up a picture of GigaBerlin?
We can, just real quick.
Yeah.
We got one that I think you skipped over from Smuggler there, but then also we are at an hour and 12 minutes, just to let you know.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Where's Smuggler? There he is.
To Elite Village Outcasts. This is in regards, we've had a few questions today about the sunglasses, and Smuggler might be correct.
Uh-huh.
I've answered this many times, Leaf Village Outcast. They're in the witness protection program.
Darn, the news. Yeah, it finally got leaked, didn't it?
Yeah, and his name is not Pete, and I'm not Mark.
Right. We're going to make a list of all of these great reasons why we're wearing sunglasses, and that'll be as entertaining as the video when it finally comes out.
Oh, I think it will be too.
Okay, which image did you want?
The GigaBerlin. It's in a folder called Midnight Cherry. And what I wanted to show our audience was this new color that Tesla has begun to offer in Germany. Now, that's pretty dark right there, but the next image, number 2, you can begin to see some of this midnight cherry color. And it truly does look like a dark cherry color. I think they, like Henry Ford, initially in GigaBerlin, they had only one color, as long as it was black or something like that.
Oh, yes, that's what Henry Ford had.
There you can see that beautiful
Wow.
red cherry color. And then the next image, image number 3, they're showing some of the stamped body panels that have not yet been painted.
You know, why Mazda currently makes, with their current iterations, a candy apple red. And to me, that is the most beautiful color on the market. This one here, I can't wait to see live. Hopefully, we'll see it here in the States because that might be my new favorite color on a car.
All right, guys, I got one other one. It's in the water damage folder. And I found this actually on Tesla Motors Club. This is a guy in New Zealand who bought a Tesla Model 3 that had gone through a typhoon. And kind of resonated with us because we bought 22 flood damaged Tesla Model S's in 2017 with 2 hurricanes on the East Coast, one in Florida and one in Texas. And again, the story's a long one, but we had winners and losers, and it was pretty much like going to Vegas and gambling. Not sure we'd do that again.
No, I'm not. But I think our biggest winner is a white Model S that came to us with 600 miles, and it said it was flood damage. I'm not sure if we ever found out exactly where the flood damage was, though.
Oh, I did get the backstory on that.
Yeah, what?
It was a mortician, lived in Louisiana,
Okay.
New Orleans. It had just rained a bit. He was driving down a road. There was some water in the road, maybe an inch or so.
Okay.
And it looked pretty wide, so he went to pass on the right, not realizing it was a narrow road and there was a 4-foot culvert on the right full of water. So he drove it into the culvert. The car sat in the water, fresh water, long enough to where some of the systems had shut down. He called a tow truck, took it back to his house, couldn't get it started. The insurance company got involved, and of course, as soon as an insurance company hears water, electric car, it needs to get totaled.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they totaled it. He ended up, it then went to auction. It sat at the Copart auction.
Yes.
And we saw the car, and what tipped me off that this might be something special was the sticker from the service center when you purchase a Tesla was still in the rear window.
Right.
I thought this is probably a newer car, or they just simply left the sticker forever, which most people won't do, right?
Right.
Well, you don't get a lot of data on the cars, but it was a P100D, which means it was a dual drive, large battery pack. It wasn't the Ludicrous, but it was definitely a nice performing car. And pictures of the inside showed it was white leather, white on white on white, just gorgeous, right? So anyway, we bought it, $55,000, I think it was. And the car gets here on the transporter. We went up there to unload it with a forklift, and just for the heck of it, we decided to put the key in and try it, and it started up.
Yeah.
And starting up with a Tesla means that it goes beep beep and the screen lights up, and so we put it in reverse. And we were able to drive it off the transporter. It had dried up enough during transport to where the car was operational again.
And all we ended up having to do was just a little bit of cosmetic cleanup inside the cabin.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that was our biggest win.
So that folder.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay. Here's a customer in New Zealand that has a Model 3, 2021, I believe, that went through a typhoon. And you can begin to see there's some mud on the dash. Now, let me preface something here. When we saw cars at auction, they typically clean them up, first of all. But you can see stains at times. Anytime that we saw a water level that was above the first level of the seat, we did not buy that car.
Right.
Now, guys like Rich Rebills will buy a car if it's got mold on the headrest because he has a lot more confidence than we do in fixing these flood-damaged cars. So if you go to the next picture, you'll begin to see what the interior of this car looks like. And you can see there's moss inside the cabin. And there's another picture as well. Let's pop that. Yeah, there. Oh my God, there's a weed growing, isn't there?
Those are plants growing
silt.
From the silt.
Amazing.
Brave guy.
This guy was far more brave than we were.
He's a brave guy. I certainly hope for the best for him. We oh man, look at that. One of our biggest failures was a satin green 100D that we bought.
Right.
And did not really find out until we got it here that it had been sitting in salt water as opposed to fresh water.
Right.
And so we'd seen some corrosion on the electrical components, and it ended up being unrepairable.
Now, look at the amount of mud and debris inside that frunk on this Model 3. And according to the article or the TMC post, this was fresh water, so that, there's some glimmer of hope here. But I assure you that this is one very brave soul, as you pointed out, and it's going to be a real challenge to get a car like this running again. I'd love to see it back on the road.
I would too. It's conductivity is not just the salts in the water. Conductivity may be occurring because of the amount of silt and other contaminants that are in the water, even though it's fresh water. So,
Exactly.
kind of have my doubts, but I'm hoping for the best. Lightning Rod has a wonderful comments. He says, "OMG, that is the coolest interior I have ever seen." Wow. And Davil has told us about our Model S, that it's an amazing S story.
Mm-hmm.
George has something for me. It says, "Mark, if you find anything on my camera idea, please email the info. Thank you." Certainly will, George. We will definitely look, and we'll email you if we find anything.
And George is also giving us an idea for the next AI background picture. He says, how about a picture of a Model 2? All right, they don't quite make that yet, but AI does render a great-looking Model 2. In fact, our picture that we posted on social media, after seeing nothing but dark silhouettes from Tesla without any detail, I asked AI, I said, give me a picture of a Tesla Model 2, and it rendered an image that was so striking with so many cool design cues that people loved it. It was one of our most successful pictures we've ever posted. But what he wants is a picture of me inside this Model 2 talking on a rotary cell phone with hair and sunglasses. Well, let me bring up something. Oh, no, it's not here anymore. We had a brick phone here in the last podcast.
The rotary cell phone is the one thing that I think will be hard to find.
Yeah. All right, and then we've got YouTube. Lightning Rod says, I like old bug eyes, and I'm looking for a way to electrify them. Volkswagens?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think you meant buggies.
Buggies. Well, if it is a Volkswagen, a lot of people are doing electrification on the old bugs because they're fairly easy, apparently, to electrify.
I wouldn't be surprised at that at all, because those older style Volkswagens, especially the Volkswagen Beetles, they're a small air-cooled engine that sits in the back of the car.
Right. Yeah.
And so that frunk area that's in Teslas is actually a frunk on that car as well.
So we've got actually a video that we're going to release during this podcast. And if you guys can pop up the image, I've got the thumbnail out there. Then I can explain what we're doing here. There we go. And as soon as that image pops up...
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the image while you and Richard talk about it.
Okay. All right. So with the success that we're having with the 3 barn find Roadsters in China, it has created a level of interest that we have never seen before. It's rare these days that somebody doesn't ask you. And I'm surprised that during this podcast, no one asked about those 3 Roadsters, an update.
Right.
The quick update, by the way, is, guys, we've got a $2 million bid at this point. They're going to be moved to Dubai within the next 3 weeks. I talked to Tesla this morning, who are going to help us get keys for these cars so we can open them up. And they're still on the market. The sellers have not yet decided which high bidder they're going to go with, and they're still coming in. So what we have here is a thumbnail of a video that we are posting right now as we speak. We were approached by a customer who said, I see you guys have great success with unusual EVs, and I've got one. This is going to blow your mind. This is the only Lotus hybrid in existence. The short story here is, after Lotus got done with the Tesla Roadster project, the UK government began to realize, my God, there's a market here, and maybe we need to get in front of this. We need to promote and encourage EV adoption like some of these other countries are doing, especially the US. So they got a bunch of grant money together. Grant money is taxpayer money that's being allocated for a particular purpose, for those of you unfamiliar with that. And they offered grant money to a number of auto manufacturers, and Lotus was one of them. And they gave them, according to records now, 23 million pounds to develop a hybrid vehicle.
So I will chime in right there with those numbers. So on paper, what we were able to track down was somewhere just south of 18 million pounds, or 17 on the high end. However, we have it on some authority that figure was closer to 23 million pounds, but we don't have the paper trail for that.
Okay. So Lotus at this point in time had some talented engineers that were used to building electric vehicles. Prior to this time, Lotus has been around decades. They make wonderful ICE sports cars. Very nimble, light, highly respected in the sports car industry. The Tesla Roadster was their first deviation into an EV. And after Tesla pulled back all of their cars and brought them to California and began to sell them, there were engineers that were ready and poised to build another electric car. So what Lotus decided to do was to build a hybrid, which I don't know whether they felt that would be easier. Do you have any input on that, Richard?
No, I don't know why they decided to go with this form of EV. I don't know if they were just wanted to do something different than what Tesla had just done. So they made this one an REEV, range extended electric vehicle. So it's got a little ICE engine in it that's just for charging the battery. That engine won't propel the vehicle. It'll charge the battery, which is a really, that's kind of weird.
Well, it's a novel idea, but it doesn't get us emission-free quite to the level that we're interested in, right? Getting fossil fuel burners
Reminds
off the
me
road.
of the T0. The generator is the generator's in the car in this case.
Which you could uncouple from the T0 and pretend that it was 100%
Yes.
BEV until you hooked up that generator. But in this case, it's part of the car. And the reason we're telling you all this is this car is going to be for sale on our Roadster matchmaking site. I know it's not a Roadster, but it looks like a Roadster. And it looks like if we get enough interest for cars like this, unusual electric vehicles, we may have to expand that beyond Roadsters. So after this podcast, this video is going to be out on YouTube. We will create a listing for this car for sale. They were supposed to build more than one. And Richard, was there a reason we were able to ferret out why they stopped at one?
There was not.
Okay.
There's no real say on why they didn't pursue it. My thoughts are, just with everything we know about Lotus and Tesla and just the mentalities during that time, they might not have thought it was worth it.
But one might also surmise that the UK government would have been expecting them to make more than one after giving them either 17 or 23 million pounds.
Agreed.
Okay.
You would expect that to
You
happen.
would expect that, yes.
But
So-
it was an investment on the UK government's part, right? And investments don't always go as planned.
Right. So this car is there's nothing like it on the planet. It's the only hybrid Lotus that we're aware of. Its next cousin now is, of course, the Evija, which is a $2.2 million EV, which is going to be very popular, in my opinion. The styling on that is everything that you would expect from a supercar, an EV supercar. It's even got holes in the side of the car for
Right.
aerodynamics, for example. So this is a Lotus 414E, right, guys?
Correct. 414E Evora.
Evora, okay. And it is going to be on our site within the next day or two. But in the meantime, if you want to get the backstory on this cool car, there's a video out on YouTube on the Gruber Motors channel. And you can view it and get some more details about this car. The car is currently in the UK. The owner lives in the Cayman Islands, and he is looking to sell this car to the right collector. So if you want a one-of, highly specialized, extremely expensive to build hybrid car, this may be the car you're looking for. One other thing I want to point out is that color that you see there is a traditional Lotus copper color. And there was one Tesla Roadster that sold on our matchmaking site a year or so ago. It was also the same color, and it was the only Tesla Roadster in copper. Somebody now owns it and is driving it, and I think it's in California.
Right.
But so anyway, rare color, rare combination, only EV hybrid that Lotus has ever built, and it's going to be for sale starting today.
Okay, and if you guys want to wrap up with some questions, Richard and I will make the video live now and put the link in the chat. for
Perfect.
everybody.
That sounds
All
like
right.
a great idea. We
One-
do have a few questions left.
One thing I wanted to say about this car, it's something we didn't put in the video. The car has an audio system on the exterior of the car. Some of you might know where I'm going with this. It will play either a V6, a V8, or a V12 sound with the throttle. It also has a simulated shifting system set up. So when you shift with the paddle gears, it'll stop it'll give you a little nudge as though you're shifting gears in an ice car. I think Dodge might have taken some inspiration from this one. With
Quite
their,
possibly.
with
And
their
you know
car.
what? I'm glad you mentioned that because I saw a video of the car that had the sounds. The six-cylinder engine sounded like a true six-cylinder sedan. It wasn't impressive at all.
Okay.
But when you switched over to V12, it suddenly sounded like a Lamborghini winding out. That sweet V12, musical sound. And so anyway, that's part of the audio package on this car is that it replicates the sounds that a car that looks like this should be making. And then, like Richard was saying, it actually simulated some of the shift patterns. There was a third sound. The pod racer.
That's right.
Forgot about that. So if you really want to freak out the people that are that are on the road, you can use the Star Wars pod racer sound.
That's cool.
All right,
Okay, so you guys want to wrap up the last questions? We'll do that now.
absolutely. What about YouTube Lightning Rod? He said that's about a $7 million wheel per wheel.
Yes, that would be in U.S. dollars about $7 million a wheel for that particular car for them to develop it. That is true.
And then Davil is giving us a tip, or the viewers a tip. Have you seen Sasha from Mountain Pass Performance? He has a Lotus Model 3 conversion. Now, that would be worth looking at.
That's something that I'll definitely want to take some time to look up by this next Tuesday.
TikTok, Hot Rail Rose. Do you require your viewers to wear sunglasses? We don't require it, but it certainly might enhance your experience.
Oh, it's highly recommended. Absolutely. And George from the Watch Rich Rebuilds channel, and I will say that this time because he says Rich Benoit has reservations for 2 flood damaged Cybertrucks.
Really? Okay. Very cool.
But they have to be flood damaged, I'm
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. It'll be a long wait.
Yes.
And then YouTube Lightning Rod, he says, oh my God, that is the coolest interior I have ever seen. Wow.
And that's when we were showing him that that moss and plant and silt covered.
Well, for any of the earth people, with that much silt in there and weeds already growing, I mean, you could literally take your garden with you if you went anywhere.
Oh, absolutely. It gives a whole new meaning to going green.
Yeah, exactly. YouTube Lightning Rod. Okay, we've already done that one. It looks like we're going to wrap up at this point. Again, thank you for joining us. We're having a great time. Next week, we will have Farzad Meshabi with us. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
I believe so.
No,
Misbahi.
Misbahi. Okay.
Misbahi.
Farzad, I'm going to apologize profusely once you get on the show because I have no idea why I'm having such a hard time with your last name. We will have him on Thursday, though, and again, I encourage you to watch that one because everything that I've seen that Farzad has been in has been inspirational and educational. He has he's brilliant on a wide range of EV topics. Ex-Tesla employee, we're going to ask him about that as well. And then tomorrow, we have our Gruber Power Services podcast. It'll be the launching. The first one, we'll see how many customers show up. We actually did an email into our main database. Now, remember, this is a customer database that is 40 years old, and we sent to over...
About 210,000 different companies have received emails.
So we may get flooded and inundated with visitors or not. We don't know yet.
We don't know.
Yeah. So again, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure. We look forward to seeing you next week, and we hope that your weekend is great and the rest of the week.
Likewise, take care.